Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining me tonight here on GB News is Lee Anderson, the new Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. We'll talk about London-based snobbery against anybody that comes from north of Watford and the current state of the party that he's Deputy Chairman of. We'll talk about Ukraine, some really big escalation of talk today about the possibility of World War III, yet no one seems to care. Well, I've got to tell you, I do. We'll talk about that hotel in Liverpool. More protests took place last Friday night. They've been almost unreported. And joining me on Talking Pints, Mohamed Amersi, an immigrant to this country who's done really rather well, got involved with Conservative politics, not without a little bit of controversy. He thinks he's got a plan to clean it up for the future. But before all of that, let's get the news with Poddy Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, Lancashire Police today confirmed the body discovered in the River Wyre in Lancashire has been identified as the missing mother of two, Nicola Bulley. The body was found about a mile away from where Nicola initially disappeared 3 weeks ago during a morning dog walk. It was found by members of the public. The cause of death has not yet been revealed, and a police liaison officer read out a statement at a press conference earlier on today on behalf of Nicola's family.
Finally, Nikki, you are no longer a missing person. You have been found. We can let you rest now. We love you, always have and always will. We will take it from here.
Well, in other news today, the families of people killed in a shooting spree near Plymouth in 2021 have spoken out against the investigation. 5 people died, including a 3-year-old girl, in a shooting rampage by 22-year-old Jake Davison. Today, the inquest jury said the victims were unlawfully killed. The inquest heard how Davison legally held a shotgun certificate and had an obsession with firearms. But a lawyer for 4 of the victims' families says there's been catastrophic failures at Devon and Cornwall Police.
The system has hopelessly failed us. In particular, the Devon and Cornwall Police Force has failed us. The evidence we have heard during this inquest over the past 5 weeks is a consistent story of individual failures, breathtaking incompetence and systemic failings within every level of the firearms licensing unit of the Devon and Cornwall Police.
Now, in news away from home, President Biden today promised more than $500 million worth of aid to Ukraine after making a surprise trip to its capital. It comes just days before the first anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. Mr. Zelensky said the visit was an extremely important sign for all Ukrainians. The US president said his country would stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Putin thought Ukraine was weak and the West was divided. As you know, Mr. President, I said to you in the beginning, he's counting on us not sticking together. He was counting on the inability to keep NATO united. He was counting on us not to be able to bring in others on the side of Ukraine. He thought he could outlast us. I don't think he's thinking that right now. God knows what he's thinking, but I don't think he's thinking that.
And lastly, here, junior doctors in England have voted overwhelmingly to strike for 72 hours next month over pay. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, says he's deeply disappointed by their decision. The British Medical Association's announcement comes as more than 11,000 healthcare workers from the GMB and Unite unions in England and Wales went on strike today in their continuing dispute over pay and staffing levels. That's the latest news for now. We're back in an hour now. Farage.
Well, as ever, it's the Conservative Party, of course, dominating the news. Rishi Sunak's deal with the European Commission on the Northern Ireland Protocol, and he went to Belfast on Friday. The DUP don't seem to like it. Well, if it's got anything to do with the European Court of Justice, there'll be a huge backbench rebellion within his own party. I have to say on trade, if the green lane for goods between the mainland and Northern Ireland genuinely was a green lane, maybe there is some room for compromise. But we'll see how it all works out. Big irony, I thought. Boris Johnson, the man who openly lied to the people of Northern Ireland, who cast Northern Ireland out into a different arrangement. Now, he did it arguably to save the rest of the UK from being forced into the customs union and a single market. But for Boris, the man who did that, now to come back and be the saviour of Northern Ireland was an irony I found quite tough to take over the weekend. And it's pretty clear that there were some games going on within the Conservative Party. Damien Green, a former Deputy Prime Minister up until 2017, Damien Green has effectively been deselected for the new seat of Weald of Kent. Why? Well, I think he was seen to be one of the most prominent pro-common marketeers and an anti-Borisite. So I wonder, are the Conservative Party about to plunge themselves back into an internal civil war? Let me know what you think. Farage at gbnews.uk. But tonight I want to start off exploring a different subject. 10 years ago, as I led a rebellion, an insurgency from UKIP, I was considered by the London upper middle classes to be completely and utterly beyond the pale. I was a complete and utter peasant, not somebody you would ever invite round to a polite dinner party in Notting Hill. And I was demonised for it, for having a view that was different to the establishment. Which is why I'm so enjoying seeing what's being done to Lee Anderson. He, of course, is the former Labour councillor. He's a Conservative member for Ashfield. He's now a deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. And boy, is he getting some stick. Lee, you're taking great pressure off the rest of us.
Well, thanks for your support, Nigel. I mean, I feel a lot better now.
Well, let's be honest. You're working class, you're northern, you're a peasant. You don't even go to the opera, do you?
Well, the last time I went to the theatre was to see the Chuckle Brothers. Yeah, that's my trip to the...
I think the editor of the Times wouldn't approve at all.
Well, it wouldn't. I mean, I've followed your career, obviously, over the past decades, and I see the abuse that you get, and I think, wow, he's got some broad shoulders. How does he do it? And then, you know, fast forward a few years, I'm taking similar sort of abuse, and the last 2 or 3 weeks have been absolutely just torrid. And like you said, I've got broad shoulders, Nigel. It's not me so much it affects, it's my mum, my dad, my family, even my friends get in touch with me and say, are you OK? We've seen what they've been writing about you. It's a lot of lies. They're going into my village, they're going into my towns, they're going into my pubs asking questions. The old lads I used to work with down the pit, they're contacting them via Facebook, asking them, you know, questions about
Any bad story about Lee?
Yeah, what do you know about him? And you can imagine my pit mates, the sort of response I get from them. And it's normally a two-word response. One's got a couple of F's in at the end there. So, yeah, it's been relentless, mate. Relentless.
Yeah, the cartoons. There's a cartoon we're going to show those watching on telly.
You'll get done for copyright on that. You know. I've already been threatened by The Guardian.
We don't care. We don't care. And, of course, you talked about the death penalty. And you talked about things like that. And listen, I was similarly lampooned with cartoons. I wonder, is it you Or is this just what public life is like? Do you think they're having an exceptional go at you?
Yeah, they are, because, as you know, Nigel, it's no secret I was a Labour councillor, worked for a Labour MP, Gloria, who works for you at the studio. So I'm sort of political public enemy number one for the Labour Party. They want my scalp. They're not having it. I will fight back. They're not going to...
What are they scared of?
They're scared because my backstory. You know, I've been that working class person from the Midlands, from the north, and you go over to that place there and you struggle to find a Labour politician, a Labour MP, that's actually had a real job in the real world. That's what they're scared of. They want to be working class heroes, and I'm struggling to find one that's actually held down a proper job, and mixed with us thick northerners.
Yeah. Well, as I say, cartoons... being lampooned, we're going to put that cartoon up. We don't care about copyright or anything like that. Lee, death penalty, food banks, immigration, taking the knee, benefits, cheap red meat from 30p. I mean, in a way, they're having a go. But let me ask you something. Why do you think Rishi Sunak made you deputy chairman?
It's a good question, because it came really out of the blue. I didn't expect it. I'm not one of these MPs that's been there looking for a career. I'm quite happy being a member of Parliament for Ashfield. That's a magnificent honour for me. I guess that, since I've been there, nobody from the Red Wars really had a high position or had that connection between government and the actual electorate and the membership. And I suppose I am that typical red to blue voter. I only voted Conservative for the very first time in 2019 at the general election, so I made that same journey. Probably back what you've done for many, many years. I made the same journey as 5-6 million other Labour voters. So it makes sense, really. I think if I was a PM, I'd say, where's that Liam? He's ex-Labour man, I need to chat to him.
But isn't the trouble, Lee, the things that you stand for, and the values that you believe in, and you believe in community and family and patriotism and hard work and graft. All those values that you believe in, which I believe in too, absolutely. Isn't the truth of it, though, the upper echelons of your party have a fairly loose relationship with much of that? Aren't they using you? Aren't they using you to say to Red Wall voters, look, you don't need to go to Reform or anybody else, you're safe with the Tories because we've got Lee. But are you really... here's my question. Are you really representative of what the Conservative Party is?
Well, there's one thing, Nigel. The Labour Party were never prepared to use me. I'm quite prepared to be used by the Tory Party. I class this job as a real honour and a privilege. I'm serving my country. I love serving my country.
I believe you.
And I know that what I say and what I think is what the vast majority of British-loving people actually think. Like myself, we're patriots. And I get lambasted in the media and over in that place over there. But I want to keep saying it, I want to keep doing it, and if people are using me, so what? I go to bed at night and I put my head on that pillar and I know I've done my best for my community and my country. I love the flag, I love the royal family, our armed forces, our police, our security, our football team. I love all that about this country. And you know what? I always say to people that this country of ours has been a gift to the world, and I'll stick by that.
What, surely not our terrible imperial past. We should all be ashamed, surely, of everything that went before in this nation.
Absolutely not. We should never be held accountable for the sins of our fathers. Like I say, Nigel, you can go back in time, railways, industrial revolution. This country has gifted the world. We'd be 50 years behind on this planet if it weren't for this great country of ours.
Can you take the heat?
Yes, I can take the heat. Like I say, when they start calling me names and doing these silly cartoons, Nigel, I worked down a coal mine. The abuse you got down a coal mine, regardless, it was just daily, it was hourly, it was by the minute, the constant abuse, and you just took it, because we're men.
Good for you. Now, the party itself, I mentioned in my little talk-in, Damien Green effectively been deselected for the new seat, Weald of Kent. He's very much a Remainer, a One-Nationer, very anti-Boris Johnson. Boris now, and I mentioned that earlier too, it's pretty clear with this Conservative Democratic organisation, there is still a significant number of people in the Conservative Party that want Boris back as leader. Do you think he's going to return before the next election?
I was a big fan of Boris in 2019. He got us elected. It was Boris, Brexit and Jeremy Corbyn, as you know. This CDO, what we talk about, this organisation, I've never been to a meeting. I don't know what they're getting up to. But, it's not been spoken about in the WhatsApp groups. I can tell you that for nothing, unless I'm in a different WhatsApp group. But this past couple of weeks, Nigel, to be honest, it's felt a little bit better over there for our party. And I know what I know what you're saying about Damien being deselected as such.
Former Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes, he is. But I mean that constituency has been, I think it's been split into two now. Made a new.
It's been
constituency.
changed. Yes.
Changed. So 70% was Damien's and 30% was the new one. So it's up to the execs, up to the members. I believe he can go to the membership now in that constituency.
It's an interesting choice, given that he lives in that part of the constituency that's splitting.
It is, but with no divine right to be selected.
No. That's absolutely true. I'm just observing. What is actually going on.
I came out against Boris in the end over the Pincher debacle, but I've just been unanimously reselected.
So you can't see him coming back?
No. I wouldn't mind him having a crack at Mayor, though, again, in London. That's interesting.
What, against the wonderful Sadiq Khan?
I would love Boris to go against Sadiq Khan and be the Mayor of London again.
Will your party stop the boats?
Yes, we've got new legislation coming, I think, in 2 weeks. Something I've asked for, Nigel, you know this.
I know that.
When you arrive on our shores, illegally, in a small boat, and I went to Calais a few weeks back and did some work on this.
You met our friends from Care for Calais. And,
oh, yes, I met them, OK. They should be sent
And you
back.
said they were as bad as the traffickers.
They're worse. They're worse because they're rinsing money out the British public. The unsuspecting British public are donating millions of pounds to Care for Calais, and they're the final cog in the wheel, the final leg of the journey. For they're enticing people to northern France. They know once they get to Calais, they're coming here. And the worst part for me, Nigel, is once they arrive, these young men, and they're all from Africa in this camp, we saw them, once they get here and they go to the hotels, Care for Calais are waiting for them in the hotels to walk them through the asylum process.
I know, and I've seen them
scandal.
I've seen them on the beach at Dungeness handing out packages and all the rest of it. Lee, if your party, of which you are now deputy chairman,
amazing.
I can't believe it either, but you are.
Yeah.
If your party doesn't stop the boats, and if illegal migration keeps running at 50,000 a year, you're toast, aren't you?
Well, we're going to have some problems at the next election, Nigel. I think we know that. I mean, my party's admitted that. It's, for me, stopping the boats is a #1 priority. Yes, we've got to fix the economy. Yes, we've got to bring inflation down. But the small boats, it's millions and millions of pounds a day. We recognise that. Now, I've been banging on about that for 3 years in that place over there. They've called me a fascist. They've called me a Nazi. They've called me a racist. I'm not. I love my country. And you know what? When I go to bed at night, I want to sleep tight in the knowledge that our borders are secure. We all lock our doors at night, don't we, when we go to bed? All of us. And we do that for a reason, because we don't want unwanted visitors coming into our property. And it's the same with our borders.
Lee Anderson, thank you. Well, you can love him or hate him, but I tell you what, he's not going to be ignored over the course of the next couple of years. It's going to be a very wild ride. Gosh, I'm enjoying this so much, I can't tell you. In a moment, let's talk about Biden's visit to Ukraine, and let's talk about a very serious escalation of language today, including talk of a potential World War III. I'm worried. The odd thing is, almost nobody else even wants to talk about it.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This Friday marks the first anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And unannounced, President Joe Biden, yes, President number 46, turned up in Kyiv earlier on today. Let's just show you a little snapshot of what he had to say.
Putin thought Ukraine was weak and the West was divided. As you know, Mr. President, I said to you in the beginning, he's counting on us not sticking together. He was counting on the inability to keep NATO united. He was counting on us not to be able to bring in others on the side of Ukraine. He thought he could outlast us. I don't think he's thinking that right now. God knows what he's thinking, but I don't think he's thinking that.
Well, that was Joe Biden speaking earlier on today. A very interesting visit. Support at home for continued aid towards Ukraine is beginning to wane. Be in no doubt about that. Today's financial pledge was $500 million. Well, compared to the $100 billion plus they've put in already, that's a very, very small amount of money. All controversial areas, such as Crimea, were conveniently avoided. All that really surprised me is he boasted about the number of times as vice president that he visited the country. I would have thought with all the questions over his son's business dealings there, that wouldn't necessarily have been all that wise. But the controversy came a little bit later in the day. And this was President Zelensky of Ukraine talking to Die Welt, the German newspaper, saying if China sides with Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, World War III will have begun. And extraordinarily, Josep Borrell, who's the EU's foreign affairs minister, said that Chinese support for Russia would be a red line. So we have Biden on the one hand saying, we're all so united behind Ukraine. Putin thought we were weak, but we're strong. But actually, we've got senior political leaders in the world talking about the prospect of World War III. I am alarmed. I am concerned. I think this consensus view that we must give Ukraine whatever they want, including Boris Johnson, who thinks the entirety of the RAF should be sent to Kyiv overnight. I think we're not having enough debate, reason and balance on this subject. Well, Martin Whittock, historian and commentator, joins me. Martin, this talk of World War III that is coming from Zelensky, I mean, they're trying to stop the Chinese helping Russia, I guess.
I think so. I think what's happening here with the US statements, with Ukrainian statements, is in a sense saying to China, don't do it. And I personally think we're more likely to see the Chinese attempting to introduce some kind of peace talks than we are likely to see them giving open support and ammunition and weapons to Ukraine, because I think the Chinese are as concerned about the situation as anybody, and they cannot stay that because they have obviously backed Russia, but they are not happy about the situation. They're not happy about the impact on the world economy. They're not happy about instability. But basically, they cannot be seen to be criticising the Russians. So I think we're more likely to see them suddenly try to catch us unawares with some peace suggestions than we are with weapons to Russia. I feel. I might be wrong.
So effectively, we've got the Chinese supporting Putin.
Yes.
We've got America supporting Zelensky. But there's been no talk of peace talks whatsoever. No. None whatsoever. And this, to me, is the interesting part. Zelensky keeps saying we must take back all territory. It doesn't just mean the Donbass or the land bridge. He means Crimea as well. I mean, there's been no conversation about this. Surely that would be risking escalation in a huge way.
Certainly. I think one of the bitter ironies of the situation is that Vladimir Putin has created a situation which is diametrically opposite to what is to his own advantage. A couple of years ago, Ukraine would not have accepted the loss of Crimea, but would have somehow learnt to live with it while negotiating. They would not have accepted the loss of Donbass, but they would kind of learn to live with it perhaps while they were negotiating. Now, with the blood and suffering that's happened since February the 24th, 2022, we now have a situation where Ukraine is completely incapable, understandably, of countenancing the loss of those areas. And in many ways, Vladimir Putin has created this situation himself, because these are also areas that he is completely incapable of losing, having carried out referenda in the Donbass, for example.
This, for Putin, is now existential, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And he's created this himself, because, as I say, a couple of years ago, we might be able to talk about this. But at the moment, it's just impossible for Ukraine to talk about loss of any sovereign territory after all the suffering. But Vladimir Putin has created situations here which he simply cannot lose on. So he has created an impasse for everybody, which is certainly very difficult as long as he remains in the Kremlin.
How many years could this last?
Good question. He is clearly counting on the West losing resolve before Russia does. I don't think that will be the case, because clearly there is concern in public opinion within Italy, for example, within Germany, elsewhere. But I think, actually, that the West has dug in for the long run. And the question is, has Russia? I mean, I think we will see perhaps an increased mobilisation, perhaps, calling people back to the colours. But that will make it increasingly unpopular across Russia, because that will spread the load of casualties. So he has bet the farm, and his bet has been called.
Oh, he's bet the farm, Martin Woodcock. Thank you for joining me. Well, let's be joined now by Major General Tim Cross, retired senior British Army officer. Tim, thank you for joining me this evening.
You're very welcome.
Question for you. We've sent, huge amounts of kit. We've sent artillery shells. We've sent anti-tank missiles, about 10,000 of them. We've sent military vehicles. We've promised to send a few tanks. I mean, the British Army hasn't got many tanks these days. Boris Johnson seems to think we should send the entirety of the Royal Air Force. And we now in Europe have a shell crisis, I think for the first time since 1915. Can we afford, Major General, to go on giving this level of support in military kit?
Well, we can afford to go on doing it, and we need to go on doing it. The issue is, how do we backfill all of the stuff that we are providing to Ukraine? One of the issues over the last few years is that we have fought wars of choice, and we have denuded ourselves of the logistics that support warfighting, major warfighting operations. And for me, the critical mass of the army, for example, is the ability to put a sustainable, divisional-sized formation into a war-fighting scenario and be able to support that for at least, let's say, 6 months. That requires a lot of stuff. As somebody once said, without supplies, no army is brave. Now, we've been giving lots of supplies to Ukraine, and I don't have a problem with that. But the bottom line is we are reducing the level of our own stocks of logistics and other things too. Yes. So we've got to put ourselves onto a bit of a war footing. We've got to up the production lines. We've got to start replacing that, partly because I mean, there is an argument to say that what we're fighting, or what we're seeing here, is a proxy war, that Ukraine are going to do all the fighting and we simply need to provide all the stuff. And that we are not going to end up by having to fight this war ourselves. That's a dangerous assumption. I'm not saying that we're going to be putting troops into Ukraine anytime soon, but I agree with the previous speaker, Martin, that this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair, and we have no way of knowing how this thing is going to go. Putin is not going to walk away from it. President Zelensky, who obviously we've all got a huge amount of respect for, obviously also talks up what needs to happen. You know, he's not going to give up his territory and so on. But the idea that Ukraine is going to retake all of their territory, including the Crimea, as you were just saying, I just think is not going to happen. Putin is not going to walk away from this.
Well, no,
Russia
nor
are
do
not
I.
going to lose. Say again?
No, nor do I. I agree with you. I think the idea of retaking Crimea is wholly unrealistic, and yet it's very much the stated view of President Zelensky. So, a thought from you. Do we know what we're coalescing around?
No. No is the short answer, other than we're coalescing around the fact that we don't want Russia, in inverted commas, to succeed. Now, what do we mean by success? What do we mean by winning and losing and so forth are part of this broader debate. But we are rightly coalescing around the idea that we cannot allow Russia to take the whole of Ukraine and indeed then take other things too. I mean, Moldova's been in the news quite a bit recently and other things too.
Yep.
What does that look like is a big issue. And there's not been that much debate, actually, wide debate in the media and elsewhere about what we mean by that. I mean, President Biden says we're in for the long haul. And I'm not suggesting that he's in any sense being disingenuous, but you have to say we weren't in it for the long haul in Afghanistan. We weren't in it for the long haul in Iraq. What does he mean by long haul? We have got to be clear that we're not going to start World War III, to go back one of your headlines, over 4 provinces of Ukraine. I mean, let's be honest about this.
Well, let's hope you're right. And yet, President Zelensky, and you said earlier in this little conversation that we admire him for his courage, his bravery, his leadership, his and indeed a very articulate man.
Yeah.
And yet, for him to say to a German media outlet that if China starts to support Russia, it's World War III, wasn't that highly irresponsible?
Well, I don't agree with him, but I don't blame him for saying it. He has, remember, we're talking about politics here as much as practical military reality. He has got to maintain a public profile that says to the West as a whole, you have got to stick with us on this. And if China comes in on Russia's side, it is obviously going to make things more difficult. I mean, actually, China in itself is a longer-term strategic threat. Somebody once said that Russia is like bad weather, China is like global climate change. And I think there's truth in that. South China Sea, what they're doing in Africa and elsewhere. And China and Russia, of course, have got this sort of agreement that there is no limits to their friendship. Now, I don't think that means China's going to send people, but will they send material support? Quite possibly.
Well,
will it lead to World War III? No, I don't think so. But I don't blame President Zelensky for wanting to ensure that the West as a whole does stay with him on this, does give him the ability to continue the fight, both in terms of defensive operations, which is what we've effectively seen over the last year, and to enable him to conduct some sort of offensive operation this coming spring, into the summer or whatever.
Well, Tim Cross, thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for joining me. And like you, I'm actually more worried long-term about China than I am about President Putin. Thank you very much indeed. In a moment, we'll talk about what happened at that hotel in Liverpool. Happened again last Friday. We'll show you some scenes. Anger is really mounting.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel. So, your thoughts at home? Are the Tory party about to tear themselves apart once again with an internal civil war? Stuart says, war? No, it's just how they normally operate. Another says, not one prime ministerial candidate will exit the European Convention on Human Rights, secure the border and end the net zero nightmare and give us lower taxes. There's not a single Conservative in the bunch. Well, I tell you what, there's one man who believes in all of those things. His name is Lee Anderson. He was in this chair just a few minutes ago. Dean says, what does it matter? They've lost the next election, whatever happens. And finally, Ryan, and I think quite perceptively here, Ryan says, no, this is a war for Brexit. The Rejoiners have been manoeuvring since the appointment of Chairman Hunt. Now the Brexiteer faction is fighting back. There's a lot of truth in that, Ryan, and I think the effective deselection of Damien Green, who was our Deputy Prime Minister just 6 years ago, I think that's all about Brexit and Boris. Yes, the Bs are there, the party's still horribly split. Now, last week we talked about Prevent, the government-funded programme to try to stop terrorism in this country. There were some revelations last week that nearly 80% of the referrals to Prevent were from so-called right-wing extremists as opposed to potential jihadi extremists. But more has come out. Talk about a what the Farage moment. Yes, Prevent, in one of their reports, suggest that programmes like Yes Minister, that programmes like The Thick of It, that works of literature such as the complete works of Shakespeare, the Canterbury Tales, films like The Dam Busters, films like Zulu, and indeed Michael Portillo's railway programmes, yes, they are all in danger of encouraging far-right sympathies. And apparently, when these programmes come up, there are like captions that appear online using the name Nigel Farage, and the report links me with Oswald Mosley. It's quite utterly extraordinary. What in God's name are we doing putting taxpayers' money into organisations like this that have been hijacked by the extreme left? It's time to defund, prevent completely. Friday week back, you saw the protests up in Knowsley, outside the hotel, concerned parents, a counter-protest, Yobs turning up. Well, this weekend, Jeremy Corbyn was in town with Joanne Anderson, the Mayor of Liverpool, on the Saturday. But on the Friday night, about 200 people from Knowsley turned up outside that hotel again. Just get a flavour of the anger.
Us looking after our daughters and our children. We want safety and we want security. You're protecting these when you should be out there protecting our kids. You're a disgrace. Get them out! Get them out! Get them out! Get...
These aren't far right. These are ordinary Labour voting families in Merseyside. I tell you what, this has only just started, yet there's been almost no coverage of that demonstration last Friday night. We're headed for some very, very difficult times. In a moment, I'll be joined by immigrant, successful, rich entrepreneur, Tory donor Mohamed Amersi. All of that on Talking Pints in just a sec.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
It's Talking Pints. I'm joined by Mohamed Amersi. Mohamed, welcome.
Thank you.
To Talking Pints. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, you're from Kenya originally.
Correct. I was born in Mombasa.
Yeah. Now, what on earth would make somebody come to this awful, racist, nasty, evil country. I mean, I keep reading in The Guardian how dreadful Britain is to everybody. So how bad was it for you coming here?
It was not bad at all. It was amazingly good. The one best thing that my parents and grandparents did was to push me to come here to get higher education, and they never regretted 1 second of it. And you call this country racist, or at least some people do. I have not experienced any form of racism in anything that I have done in this country from the time that I first came here. This is a country that allowed people like myself to be enabled, to be empowered, to be engaged. And it is what I would like to see for my children and my grandchildren. It's a great country.
It's interesting, isn't it? The same people that condemn us as being racist are the same people that condemn Lee Anderson, who was there's an element of self-hatred in this country, isn't there?
So yes, there is, but it's a very minor cross-section of society, and one should not read that as being the view held by people like me who came from distant shores and made a success here. So many of the Ugandan Asians made a success here. Many of the people from the subcontinent made it successful here. So many people from the West Indies have made it successful here. They are British through and through. The opportunities they got here, they would never have got back home, and they know it.
So you come here, you get a good education, you qualify in law, but it's in the whole telecoms sector that you make your fortune.
Yes.
And is that because it's been deregulated, the internet's coming? How do you go from being a well-educated young man to becoming quite a rich man?
So I was a lawyer that specialized in corporate finance, in mergers, acquisitions, and it just happened that some friends that I knew got into positions of corporate power or corporate executives in large telecom companies. And so they decided in the first instance to use my skills in doing deals, papering deals. And then I saw myself that instead of wanting to paper deals, why don't I be the deal maker and get somebody else to paper deals? And that got me going, and we set up an impressive shop in New York, where the internet was just taking off. Valuations were done on the basis of eyeballs, can you imagine, at that time? And companies that you started up in 6 months, you could take public. And so it's all a question of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because you make your own luck to a certain extent in life, and if you don't take a chance, you're never going to do it. And yet, some people are just, as you say, they're in the right place at the right time. It's partly judgment, but luck has something to do with it somewhere, doesn't it?
That's a very interesting question, which I've asked myself and I've asked other people. If they had the choice, would they rather be smart or lucky?
Yeah.
The university academics will say they'd rather be smart. But other people, they say they'd rather have luck on their side, because if they have luck on their side and they make money, they can hire smart people.
Well, this is, of course, what Napoleon said, give me lucky generals.
Sure.
That's all he wanted was lucky generals.
Sure.
And so you go on and you make a lot of success, but you also mix in some pretty extraordinary circles. You know, you mix in the sort of the Kofi Annans, and of course, as he was Prince Charles, but he's now our king.
Sure.
So tell me about your relationship with the king.
So let's start with Kofi Annan. You mentioned him first. I thought he was a great statesman, and he and I spent time at the Blavatnik School at Oxford and other places discussing some of the challenges that the world was likely to face. And one thing that he and I discussed at length, or two things we discussed, was one, how to remodel the Security Council of the United Nations, because at the moment and at that time and now, it is basically an organ that has paralysis. It cannot
because of the veto power.
Because of the veto power, absolutely. Yeah. So how do you change that? And we spent time discussing that, because we said extend the membership and change the voting power so that only very, very few things require absolute unanimity. And the countries that were being invited or considered to join were Brazil, India, and Germany. and within Europe at that time for France to give up its seat, the UK to stay, because the UK was representing the Commonwealth. So we spent a lot of time discussing this, and academics got involved in drafting paperwork. The second thing is Article 5 of the Treaty of NATO. So I've written an article that got published by the Foreign Policy Research Institute. It's the 75th anniversary of the founding of NATO next year, and we have to change Article 5 because it is out of date. It doesn't apply properly in a cyber warfare context, in a biological warfare context, and it only applies to military conflict. But the wars of the future will not be Russia-Ukraine.
Well, you say that, although it's pretty remarkable to see trench warfare that's going on. I mean, here's this balance, isn't there? We want to get on across the world, but do you believe in national sovereignty? Do you believe in the Brexit vote?
So on Brexit, it's interesting. I have wavered on it, to be frank. One side of me from the business world says that there is always value in optionality. And by that, what I mean is it took 44 years or whatever the timeline was to get to where we were. And should we be destroying all of it in the space of 1 or 2 years? Or are we likely to regret it, not because of how we see it here, but events that are outside our control? So do we want to have that optionality of at least retaining some form of relationship?
Or be self. Listen, okay. It's a huge debate.
I know. And the purists would say, absolutely not. If you want to go and become successful, and if you are sailing, you need to lose sight of the shore if you want to get to the next shore. Because if you're not going to lose sight of this shore, then you will never get to the next shore.
But Mohamed, it's plagued the Conservative Party, this issue. I mean, actually for 50 years.
Yes.
The whole relationship with Europe, and it's plagued Labour too at different times. I mean, you know, you're a controversial figure. You've made money.
I would say that.
Well, you've made money in Russia and alleged links with Putin, or people that are friends of Putin, and all of there's been a lot of controversy around you, as there always is.
Publicity is how I would put it, not controversy, but we can discuss it.
Listen, I mean, we can argue that round the houses. But you have been somebody who's given, you and your partner, but you've given significant sums of money to you've given money to many things, but to the Conservative Party. You were right there in it, you know, you were a member of a big donors club. You paid £100,000 to have breakfast with Boris Johnson. Was it a good breakfast?
I never had it in the end, and they refunded the money. They were decent enough to say, we could not deliver this promise because of COVID-19. Now we know Partygate, but at that time we did not know Partygate. So the thinking was that he was not entertaining, so here's your money back. But let me just make one other point about King Charles. So I had the privilege of serving as a trustee on Prince's Trust International, one of his charities that replicates what Prince's Trust does here abroad. And I was the chair of the British Asian Trust, which is the British Asian diaspora and programs there. And I was a board member of Mosaic. I have great respect and great admiration for our king, because the amount of time and the vision and the dedication he has had on charity is phenomenal, and on climate change.
We want him to do well.
Absolutely.
We want him to do well. We want him to do well.
The greatest and the fondest of memories, I was 6 years on the boards.
No. You've got a very long CV, actually. Getting back to the Conservative Party, you know, you've given them money, you've been part of Quintessentially, Ben Elliott's organisation. I mean, have you ever been offered a peerage for money?
I have not been offered, and honestly, I would not take it even if I was given it as of now. A, I'm too young for that position, and B, the way that it works is that it, in a way, handcuffs you, because I'm a free spirit. I still feel that I've got energy left in me, and I want to do things.
But Mohamed, it is going on, this stuff, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
This stuff is going on.
It is going on. The Guardian actually did a research that I spoke about in my interview last time, that 17 of the last 18 treasurers of the Tory party are in the Lords. That's not a coincidence.
No. So are you minded to go on giving them money or not?
So I've changed my tactics a little bit because, you know, when you start first, so I had a choice. I was told, can we have some money from you? You're now resident in the UK and you are part of the fabric of society here. And I said, I want to give money where I can make a difference. So it's a big difference, because there are people who say, I want to give money and I want something.
That's right.
I said, I want to give money, but I want to do something.
Well, I'm delighted, Mohammed. They haven't corrupted you yet, but they'll come back for you.
No. So what I've done is I've chosen the last year, after all these newspaper articles broke out, that I'd rather support the MPs on the ground, people who are campaigning.
Yes, I've seen your donations
funding,
to individuals.
Individuals, rather than CCHQ, because that is a black hole. I don't know where that money goes and what they do with the money.
I sense, before you're in the House of Lords, you've got a lot more to do, haven't you?
Yes, I want to do a lot more. I don't want to retire.
On that note, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Mohamed Amersi for joining me.
Pleasure.
OK, it's Farage the Farage. I've got some questions. Goodness knows what you've sent me today. Working from home is a curse, and it has made the whole country function in slow motion. How can this madness be reversed? Easy. Sack the civil service. Tell them unless they turn up in Whitehall, their jobs are gone. 10-second reaction from you.
So I think that working from home means you cannot get the culture and the camaraderie and the team spirit that you would get if you went back to the office. And success is all about teamwork.
And young people need to learn off others.
Absolutely.
And they can't do it on blooming Zoom. Another one. One viewer asks me, could Lee Anderson be the UK's Donald Trump? I don't know the answer to that, but I have to say, I think Lee Anderson is a breath of fresh air. I know Mohammed agrees with me on that. And you know what? To see somebody in politics standing up and saying what they believe, and you can agree with him, you can disagree with him, but that's what he believes, rather than this constant hedging and wavering that we get from the careerists. So I think Lee Anderson, a breath of fresh air. It was a pleasure to have him and all the other guests on today. I'm going to hand you over now to Bev Turner.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm here this week from 8 o'clock until 9. We've got a great show lined up for me. We've got all sorts on the show tonight. We've got LTNs, the war on motorists. Who does actually benefit from those, though? Armchair detectives. This is, of course, the sad news about Nicola Bulley's body being found, but the role that social media sleuths played in that. We're going to be discussing that. Roald Dahl, is he corrupting the young? Did he corrupt the young, or does he need this sensitivity police on his work? And also an eyebrow-raising Roman artefact. All that after your weather.
Hello, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Well, tomorrow is going to be a dry day for many with a few sunny spells around and remaining still quite mild. Now, most of this settled weather is due to this high pressure that's still around across most of England and Wales. Though looking further north, we have got some weather fronts that try to push in through Monday and into the start of Tuesday, just bringing us some outbreaks of rain and drizzle to end the day. There will be some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, mostly over western upslopes as well through this evening. Otherwise, it's going to be a dry night, quite cloudy though, so temperatures are going to be remaining pretty mild once again, with little to no frost around for the start of Tuesday. There's going to be another cloudy start to the day tomorrow, little in the way of brightness to start the day, with outbreaks of rain continuing across the far north of Scotland, and these could be heavy at times. With a freshening breeze as well, it's going to be feeling pretty cool here in the wind. Though with the cloudy skies elsewhere and limited brightness, it will be quite a mild day elsewhere, with temperatures generally sticking around in the double figures. But looking to Tuesday evening and into the start of Wednesday, and it's all changed with this band of rain making its way south and eastwards. And this marks a change to some slightly cooler conditions. So that rain will make its way southeastwards through Tuesday night and into the start of Wednesday. So remaining generally dry to start, but cloudy ahead of this, with some rain building in towards the early hours of Wednesday. Behind this, though, blustery showers and clear spells moving in, which means we could just see a patchy grass frost to start Wednesday here. That rain will continue to make its way south and eastwards throughout the...
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment